Hello, and welcome to the Knurlmade YouTube channel. My name is Nunu. I create this little place on the internet to share a few cozy, amazing woolly moments whenever and wherever they happen. I'm based in Dusseldorf, Germany, and I live here with my husband and our two children. I make a lot of things. I really enjoy creating, and my medium of choice is fiber. So I knit, I spin, occasionally I sew and I quilt. And in this video, I would love it if I could share a few things, some making journey that I've been doing all through January with you. What I'm wearing is actually my first finished object of 2024. It is the DRK Everyday Sweater by Andrea Mowry. It is a circular yoke sweater, knit top down, and it's a very straightforward sweater construction. Very beginner friendly, I would say. So you start at the top, casting on for the ribbing, and then doing a few sets of increase rounds to increase the circumference of the knit so that it fits over your shoulder, separating for the body and sleeves, and then knitting those three tubes separately. What's fun about this one is that I get to use my Handspun yarn stash, and I pick a gradating color because so far I've been mostly spinning single skein hand spinning projects. So I only have one sweater quantity, but here I decided to play a little bit with the colors and I really enjoy it. I think it looks super fun. I started with this mostly gray hand spun using an art bat that I got at Etsy way back when, and then I continued with this light green with some speckles of rust. This is from Hilltop Cloud. It's 50% merino and 50% Tassa silk. And then I continued with this dark gray color, which is a Corriedale yak and rose blend. And I was pretty sure in the middle that I could manage with just 300 grams of yarn. This is knitted in DK weight sport gauge, but I did run out on the sleeves. So as you can see, the body is quite cropped, so the sleeves extend quite a bit longer. So I had to supplement one more color there. And I must say I'm quite happy with my choice here. I think this would be not as fun if it were to stop at the dark gray, but here I get to play with like the saturation because at the beginning I start with gray and you don't get to see a lot of green, so changing not only in terms of lightness and darkness of the color but also shifting the hues quite nicely, at least in my opinion. One modification I did is I decided to use the reverse stockinette side as the outward showing part because I did knit a swatch with the color changes and I really much prefer the color transition shown by the reverse stockinette side compared to the stockinette. The pearl bumps just make it that much more subtle. So I decided to do that. I did make a few mistakes in the beginning carrying the yarn as I was changing the color on the reverse stockinette side because that's what I'm used to. But thankfully I realized this not too late. So I ripped back a little bit and then changing the way I cross the yarn when I change color so that the carried over yarn ends up on the stockinette side. To shift the color, I do a few rounds starting with introducing the new color in one line, and then knitting the old color for 2 lines, and then 2 lines of the new colors, and then 1 line of the old color, and then continuing from there on with the new color. And this is how the result looks like. You can see best over there. And then I did 2x2 ribbing with tubular bind off. So yeah, I've been spinning for quite a few years, but I always enjoy my hand spun so much in their skein form that I've been too reserved to use them actually in knitting, and this has completely changed my mind. And I planned to use more of my hand spun stash this year. Moving on to works in progress, I have 3 main things that I'm working on in January, and the first one is a sock project, living in this bag using the result of my sashiko embroidery experiment. So my mom, she lives in Indonesia, where I'm from, and so I don't get to knit her quite as much items as I would have liked made of wool. But one thing I did make her that she get a lot of use out of is this pair of socks. She used it whenever she goes somewhere else where it's a bit cooler. She finds that it really does keep her feet warm. And when she finalized the plan to visit us in Europe in the spring, she did request another pair of socks, which I happily obliged. Because the first pair was white, we thought this time we'd go with something of a darker color. And after sending her a few options from my stash, we landed on this nice brown color, which is this very rustic, woolly farm yarn that I got in Montafon during my winter vacation last year. It says Gutes von Schaf und Ziege. I believe this is a yarn collective that pulls together products made using various kinds of sheepy resources. For example, this one clearly is made from wool, but they also have things like soap or lanolin based products and sheepskin and so on. This is something I really like to do whenever I go somewhere, is to buy a yarn that is specific to the area. For example, this one, I don't think it's straightforward to be able to get it online. But now I get to keep this and experience different types of wool from different types of places, and then I get to have a nice memory from it. So this is perfect for my mom. About the sock, I have finished the first piece, which is, as you can see here, it has a 2x2 accent on the body and the front of the sock. And then in the back, I keep it stockinette. And then I did heel flap and gusset construction with slip stitch heel detail. I did look up a pattern, which I will link down below, but I mostly just use it to find out how many stitches I should be casting on for socks of this size, because the yarn is worsted weight. And yeah, I modify it heavily. So the stitch pattern I decided myself, and the heel stitch pattern is also different. This is how I like to make my socks. I find that the heel flap and gusset construction fits feet the best compared to short row heels. So that's what I decided to do for my mom. The first pair I made her used German short rows, and in the photos she sent me, I could see that the top tends to slip quite a bit, so I hope this one would fit her better. And I only have a little bit left to finish, so this will be perfectly timed for her visit in April. Right. My next project is a sweater project for myself. So my next project is sweater number 18 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I started knitting this in, I would say, November or December last year, and it's been languishing for quite some time. As you can see, I finished most of the sweater. I'm only missing really one more sleeve. The neckband is finished, the first sleeve is finished, and the stitch pattern is beautiful. I use Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the color Oatmeal, I believe, but I will link my Ravelry project page down below, and then you can take a look there if you're interested. I have 2 skeins, and this is how much I have left for the second sleeve. So what I did was, once I finished the body, I knit the collar, and then I weigh how many grams of yarn I have left. And then I make sure that when I finish the first sleeve, I haven't used more than half of that leftover yarn. And I think I'm good. This is how I avoid yarn chicken. I find that weighing is such a simple trick to do to save myself from having to worry about whether my yarn will run out or not, because the way they look can be quite deceiving. Sometimes it looks like a lot, but it's like you use up way more than you thought you would. But some other time it looks like it's such a small ball, but it lasts quite long. So this also has to do with how tightly a yarn ball is wound. So the best way to tell, I have found, is just to weigh it and then keep note of it. So in this case, it's just a matter of picking up those stitches and start knitting, really. This happens to me quite often, that once a project requires a different step, I tend to put it off. And that's basically just what happened here. One thing is, I did not purchase the pattern for the sweater. I did knit jacket number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which was a cardigan version of this sweater, knitted in the same stitch pattern. And that one I love. I got so much wear out of. So I thought it'll be fun to knit a sweater version, and I have this yarn in my stash that might fit the quantity. So I decided to just try to modify the pattern, because I believe the sweater version is actually easier than the cardigan version, because you don't have to knit a button band, you don't have to pick up stitches or figure out how to knit the double knitted button band, or how to make the buttonhole, or where to place the buttons, and so on and so forth. So the difference is then in the front, right? So you pick up the stitches for the shoulder. With the cardigan, you continue increasing to create the V shape, and then continue knitting back and forth until the body is finished. But in this case, you would need to shape the neckline a bit, and then cast on some stitches to join in the round, and then continue in the round thereafter. So the neckline is not quite as neat as it is in the pattern page, but I'm happy with this. Yeah, I think I could take a bit of advantage of my experience of knitting and just try to work this out for myself. It doesn't have to be exactly as how the designer published it. It's a sweater. It looks nice, and I should just knit the second sleeve. I hope I can finish that next month. My last work in progress is something quite special. It's actually a birthday present for my husband. The pattern comes from this Rowan magazine, issue number 58. which I purchased way back when I was just first starting to knit. Let me see if I can find the year. This is from 2015. Wow. Yeah, it's from 2015. This includes quite a lot of male sweater patterns, which I appreciate because it's not easy to find male sweater patterns. You definitely don't have as much options as with female sweaters. So there's this collection where there are quite a few of male sweater patterns. For example, this one. And then this one. So this is the sweater I am currently knitting. It's called Mersea and it's designed by Carlo Volpi, and it uses mosaic knitting and showcase the slip stitch pattern with the yarn carried over when you slip stitches. And here again I am using my handspun yarn because I want it to be extra special. So I'm pairing up these two colors. This is part of the gradient pack by Hilltop Cloud with BFL and Camel blend base. And I'm pairing it with the unspun yarn Flotulopi from Istex. So you can see it's the green one, and together they create this texture. I finished the first sleeve and I'm well underway with the second sleeve. The pattern is knit flat, but I converted it to be knitted in the round from the wrong side. This is something I found from a Ravelry project note. This is how the sweater would look like. You see the foreground color is the brown one, and then the accent color is the handspun yarn. And this is how it looks like while I'm knitting it up. So once turned inside out, it'll look like this. So this stitch pattern is reminiscent of the shifty sweater actually, which I also own. So I know that the way it's knitted is almost the same. But this actually is meant to be worn with the slip yarn outward. Yeah. So I'm quite enjoying that. Seeing how my handspun yarn looks like in different textures is really fun. And this will take a long time. I think I'll be knitting this for a long time because it's mosaic knit. So you essentially have to knit the same round twice because you only work one color at a time. So this sleeve alone takes almost 200 rows. And that's just the sleeve. So the body will take quite a longer time. And I'm also considering changing the yoke construction. So the sweater is supposed to be a drop shoulder sweater. So you knit the body and then the sleeve is just picked up from here or seamed. And then I'm not sure if that would actually fit my husband quite nicely because so far I've only knitted him raglan and circular and they both fit him quite nicely. So I don't know if I want to take a gamble on a new construction with something that takes a lot of effort. On the other hand, it could also fit him quite nicely, and then I figure out that, okay, all of these things work. And yeah, modification with such a complicated stitch pattern might also be not so straightforward. So I'm considering all of these things. What I would do is I would knit the sleeves and then the body tube, and then I would decide then what I would do. Maybe I will overlay these pieces on the sweater I already knit him and see where they fall, and what I could use to fill the remaining unknitted fabric. Yeah, so I think that's my plan. I'm gonna just get going on the sleeve and enjoy that, and then the body will also be working the same way. So mindless up until the yoke section. And his birthday is at the end of March, so I only have 1.5 months left. And I started this, I think, early January. Yeah, I haven't been prioritizing it much because I thought I have a lot of time. But now that I think about it, maybe I should get going on that. Moving on from knitting, I have also been spinning this month. I'm currently in the middle of a big sweater spin project using, again, Hilltop Cloud in the Camel BFL base. It's one of my favorites. And this is the fiber braid that I'm currently spinning up. It has blues, purples, greens, and gold rust. Very, very pretty. I have 200 grams of this fiber and I split it into 3. I weigh it exactly like 66, 67 grams for each bobbin, and I've actually finished 2 of them, and the third one is in progress. So this is supposed to go with the main color, which I have finished spinning up, which would be this gold rusty greeny color. I plan to knit a shifty with this one, but after knitting all of that mosaic, I don't know if I would be in the mood for another one with handspun. I'll have to check and see. But I have 300 grams of the main color and 200 grams of the contrast color. Yeah, I think it would look really nice. That's underway. And then the other thing I've tried this month is a little bit of natural dyeing. I used avocado to dye some of my handspun. This is the first result of my natural dyeing this month. This is not my first time natural dyeing, but this is what I got, and I'm very, very happy with this result. It has this pinky beige tone to it. This was dyed using one avocado, so the skin and the pit. And then after I finished dyeing this one, the dye bath still looks quite saturated, so I decided to dig again to my handspun stash and see what I could find there. And I found this other two that I could dip into the dye bath. This is Shetland, and this is an art bat from Barn to Yarn. It's also an Etsy store. I spun this up in 2018 and natural dyed it on a whim in 2025. So this was originally a high contrast white and dark brown color, but it's a bit too high contrast for me, so I thought overlaying a beigey pink color on top would be perfect, and I think it does go quite well with the brown color. The first one is a sheep breed called Coburger Fuchs, which is quite commonly found here in Germany. It's a bit more rustic, but I think it'll be great for bed socks or gloves, and yeah, something more hard wearing. This would be perfect. So this is a huge step up from my first attempt at dyeing with avocado, which I have right here. Look at that. So this first one was dyed in the fiber, and then I spun it up. This is wool, linen, milk silk. And you see, this has no pink tone in it whatsoever compared to this one. Wow, that's amazing. I've only get to see them side by side now. So I did things quite differently this time. The first time around, I was collecting avocado skin and pits for a really long time. I froze them, and I just thought I needed so much, so I end up with 2 full Ziploc bags before it took too much space in the freezer that I decided I have to use it. And then after collecting that many for such a long time, and then to just dye a few 100 grams of wool and come up with this, it was quite disappointing. So I wasn't impressed, to say the least. And I thought, yeah, maybe it doesn't work out. But this time I tried to do things a bit differently. I have been watching Jente from Mine Walden YouTube channel, and she does natural dyeing from time to time, and she always shows the process very nicely. And I think one of my biggest issue is that I did not extract the dye from the material properly before dyeing my yarn. So with the first skein here, I pre-soak the fiber, but I put it all together with the avocado stuff and simmer them together at the same time. Whereas with the second attempt here, I actually simmer the avocado materials for 1 to 2 hours before I put the yarn in. So actually, yeah, in that first 2 hours of simmering, I could see the color of the dye bath transition from a light brown to a deep red color, like red wine color. And then I didn't use any other mordants because I heard that the avocado pit contains tannins that work as a mordant. And yeah, like the color sticks. So I'm very happy with this. This makes me feel that much more excited to work with this yarn. So in relation to that, I got so inspired that I decided to pick up a new book and add it to my crafting library. This is Wild Color by Jenny Dean. And here it contains some history of dyes, most importantly instructions about how to dye, how to mordant, and recipes for gram of material to like fiber that you want to dye, how to get those colors, and then what happens when you add different chemicals at different stages of the dyeing, because it could change the color quite drastically actually. It also has these list of plants that you can use for dyeing, as well as the colors that they result in. And this made me really excited because just by flipping through the first few pages, I could already see stuff that I have growing in my garden that I could actually use, like dahlias. I actually have some dahlias in my garden. I hope it will. Oh, that was last year. Yeah, I will plant some more dahlia this year and then try to see if I could use the flower and the leaves for that. I also have some marigolds and some coneflower, and my in-laws actually has apple trees and walnut trees. So these are materials that I could potentially ask for and then try to use it to dye some stuff. So that was my making adventure in January. It has been a very crafty month. I sure have been prioritizing crafting throughout this month because I'm craving it. I just feel this need to express the ideas I have in my head with the materials that I have around me. And so I'm happy that I could tell you about some of these. One of the reasons why I want to create this channel is because I've been making in solitary ever since I started. So it's been quite both lonely. It sounds a bit sad, but it is a bit lonely. And it's also such a shame to have all of these experiences and knowledge and maybe some things that I've learned along the way to stop just basically in my head. Maybe this could benefit other people, other makers who want to do something similar. And maybe I could even make a friend or two by sharing my making journey on the internet. So if you like what you see, if you also make this month, tell me what have you been up to, share down below, maybe also your plans for next month. Let's get chatting, and I hope to see you around. Bye.